Hi everyone, back with Lit It Up with Rajeshwari Kalyanam at JLF, the wonderful Diggy Palace venue with none other than the founder, the writer, the historian and whom we call back home in Hyderabad, the white mogul of our time. Mr. William Dalrymple is here with us.
Good afternoon.
And again, pardon the noise, blame it on JLF. So, Mr. Dalrymple, please tell me, let's talk about Anarchy because this has been the book that has been in the offing like for how many years now? Like
6 years.
6 years, amazing.
6 years.
And it shows in the volume of the book. I think the readers are also
Big
having
fat
that.
book.
How many pages? I'm just.
I can't remember. I think 600 pages roughly.
Yeah, exactly.
Of which 500 text and 100 of notes and bibliography.
I think we can't blame it on the book because I think East India Company was there for so many years and
correct.
Centuries.
We blame everything on the East India Company.
We do. And incidentally, I think we should start blaming them, not the British entirely, because they both are two different entities. I mean,
So, yeah, I mean, any more than Facebook is America or Google is the American government. The East India Company was an independent company. It was a corporation. It was run by its directors and shareholders for profit. The British government did become involved from about 1777, but the British government did become involved from 1784. But the East India Company was founded in 1599, so for most of its history it was a libertarian, unregulated capitalist dream in a sense. I mean, for its shareholders and for its directors, it had absolute military means to do what it liked in India for most of its history. But it did become a British government affair after the nationalisation of the company in 1858, after the 1857 uprising.
yeah. After that, probably the British took over India,
and it became the Raj, exactly.
Yeah. But I think it was probably the corporate of that time about how a corporate can become powerful and all encompassing.
Exactly that. It is the story of the power of one corporation and how and everything we fear about corporations today. The ability of a corporation to bribe a legislature, bribe Parliament, the ability of a corporation to actually be richer and to take on the nation state. All this began with the East India Company.
What worked for them at that time?
In what sense?
What worked for them at that time that they could get such huge power? I mean,
they were the largest capitalist organisation in the world. They started off by trading in spices. They then moved particularly into textiles, and they were shipping Indian textiles, particularly Bengali cotton and silk, around the world. And then later on, from about the 1780s, they began also growing opium in India, which they sold illegally in China, and the biggest narco operation in history. Forget the Medellin cartel. The East India Company was a far bigger narco operation. And with the profits of that, they bought tea, which they then sold in India, in Europe, and in America. So the Boston Tea Party was East India Company tea, which gets dumped in Boston Harbor. So it was a huge world-encompassing, world-straggling organization.
So was this like when you start a book, I mean, you started and ended the book after so many pages, and how did it emerge, the book? Did you know how it was emerging, or through the process of the book did you discover some new things? How was that?
I had a pretty clear idea from the beginning that it was going to be about the rise of the company and set against the decline of the Mughals. The characters came into focus more gradually. It's people like Clive, Hastings, Shah Alam, the main figures in the book only gradually formed, like watching a photograph develop in Developer. That was a slower thing, but the main outline of the book is very clear from the beginning.
The reason I asked this question was because some of the revelation, like you had started writing about history of India, the Mughal history and art history and everything else. I think where was this one point where you thought this was the main anarchy that happened? Or probably laid foundation for.
This is my fourth book on this period. I started off by writing White Mughals, which was a micro history of Hyderabad, 1798, 1805. Then wrote Last Mughal, which is about Delhi during the uprising, 1857 to 8. Then I wrote Return of the King, which is about when the East India Company goes off to Afghanistan and invades Afghanistan.
Again, a very rare part of the history that no one of us, not many of us knew that.
1839 to 42, and I realised that these three micro-histories had not, in fact, told the big picture about the East India Company. So I then sort of, stepped back and wrote this Anarchy.
Where do you see yourself? I mean, from the time when you saw these grave of your forefather or your, uncle and four ancestral uncles, and then you thought they were in India and they were in Hyderabad, and from then to now, I think.
Yeah, no, I mean, it turns out the generations of my family were here. I have Indian blood. I'm part Bengali, and I didn't know any of this when I was growing up.
and they do feature in your book.
There's 3 Dalrymples in the Anarchy. There's 1 Dalrymple in White Moguls.
Finally, you kind of discovered them. Yeah. So, what part of this book? What part of this book? I think majorly kind of at one point the books merge, as in the book and the present merge is the present situation.
So, in the end, I draw the parallels, which are very obvious, between the corporations then, the East India Company, and corporations today. And in a sense, the whole book is a warning about the dangers of unregulated corporate power.
Sure. And just a little bit about the festival, because we are here at the festival. We have spoken to you many times, but not at the festival. So what do you think is working for this festival every year, year and year again? I mean,
well, we're very lucky. It's the largest literary festival in the world. We have 500,000 people.
I think it goes far beyond luck. I can say a great organizing and amazing authors, and there should be this one thing that has somehow worked for it.
Yeah, we have. I think we have 60 festival directors here today, studying how we've done it.
Yeah, really.
So no, it's a success, and I'm very grateful to India for, in a sense, accommodating it. We have, there are various strands. With the 3 of us that run it, I basically do the international programming. Namita basically does the Desi and Indian programming and the Bhasha programming. Because we have a very large program that's not in English. About a third of the programming is in Hindi or Bengali or Malayali. And in Malayalam, we have Sanjoy doing and Teamwork doing the business side of it, and I think we're all reliant on each other. I couldn't do Namita's job or Sanjoy's job, vice versa. So the team which founded it is still the team which run it now, which is always a good sign.
Yeah. So I'm reaching my last question. I know you're very tired. Otherwise, this podcast is usually 15 minutes. So the reason why I think Jaipur Lit Fest is also significant is that it has been probably the torchbearer or kind of a lighthouse for the rest of the festivals in India. Some of them are working, some of them are not working. Like I've seen you at Kerala Literature Festival, amazing festival again.
Lovely festival. I loved my first time at that festival, and it's on the beach.
Yes, it's on the beach.
They may not have Diggy Palace, but they've got a fantastic beach, which is a wonderful place for a festival. I had a great weekend, and such a beautiful area.
So, what do you think? I mean, would you like to say anything to the Lit Fest that are just cropping up everywhere?
No. As you say, there's no question that we were the first, and we had the idea, and it spread from here. And I think that's the thing we're most proud of, that we have.
But maybe something
created a small cultural renaissance.
As I said, the more the merrier. But somewhere there is a little, somewhere there's something lacking in few festivals which are not able to.
Well, I think anything that produces a wave of imitations, and not everyone is going to be successful. But I was very proud looking at what the Kerala Lit Fest guys had done last weekend. I thought it was a terrific festival, and it's not rocket science. Other people can do it too.
It just needs some kind of focus on literature, not more than anything else.
Exactly, and one of the things I think that 2 or 3 things have made the festival work as well. First is it's at a time of year, January, when there's nothing else going on in the rest of the world. So American and British and Caribbean and Latin American and African authors are always happy to come at this time. Secondly, Jaipur is a fantastic place for a festival, and within Jaipur, Diggy is a fantastic place to hold it. So people want to come to Jaipur, they want to come to India, this time of year in winter when it's not too hot and when Europe's miserable and cold. And finally, I think, we've had a very tight organisation by Sanjoy, and our programming is, with the only festival, I think there's 2 directors, and Namita, really knows her fiction and her Indian literature. I'm obviously a non-fiction author, and my strength is in the international non-fiction list. So between us, I think we make a good team.
Wonderful. And congratulations on that. Where from? I heard Diggy Palace. This is the last festival going to happen in Diggy Palace.
I hope it's not the last year in Diggy Palace.
We
want to stay. Diggy wants us to stay. It's the police who think that we are disrupting the vicinity, and I hope that there may be yet negotiations where we can find a way around this.
We hope so too. It's a beautiful place.
It's a beautiful place. So let's hope we're still here next year.
Thank you so much for giving us time. I know how hard-pressed you are for that.
Thank you so much.
See you around. Bye-bye. We had William Dalrymple here at the beautiful Diggy Palace. Believe it, guys, it's an amazing place to be for literature lovers, for book lovers. And I have many more interviews coming your way. Stay tuned. Lead it up with Rajeshwari Kalyanam.